It's not like we're saying no.
Okay, okay. Call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Bennett is absent. Mrs. Eckert?
Here.
Mr. Franco?
Here.
Mrs. Goebel?
Here.
Dr. Provola?
Here.
Mr. Widener?
Here.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Here.
Mrs. Arnold?
Here. As you can tell, we have Mr. Farr with us remotely. All right, superintendent's remarks.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for coming. Tonight is a big meeting because every April, the board is asked to approve a proposed final budget for the next school year. I've been working diligently with my team, Dr. Suppan and Christine Parrish, on the preparation of the budgets that are going to be shown, or the proposed budgets that are going to be shown to you this evening. There are some areas of the budget I'm very, very proud of, and there are some areas that we're going to be faced with challenges moving forward, and I look forward to our discussion a little bit later. Kindergarten registration is currently taking place in our administration building. I'm encouraging members of our community with kindergarten-age children to get their child registered for the 2023-24 school year right now. If parents aren't sure what to do, because we do have an online portal, but if they're not sure what to do, please reach out to the primary center and we will gladly help get you registered or your child registered for kindergarten. And if you're listening to this and you know your neighbors have some school age or kindergarten age children, please let them know. We had two big events on campus today. This is not one of them, but we had two very large events on campus today. Again, this year, Mr. Ellsworth did a great job organizing and running our annual career fair. Lots and lots of people were here. What a great event. The gym was packed. I got a picture, and I will be sharing that later on my Instagram, but it was a great event. Earlier this evening, in fact, just now, I saw Mr. Castellani come in. He had a very large event at his school also, that at the PC, he and his staff hosted families at their Spring Tiger Academy Showcase, and it was really based around, or a lot of it was based around a single book. And there was unbelievable artwork, and there was life-size heart that they were walking through in the gymnasium. And it was about Leonardo da Vinci and a lot of things that he did. And they culminated it with, they had a stunt plane flying over. I don't know if anybody saw it. There was a stunt plane at 6:45 that was flying over the PC doing stunts. It was part of the event that Mr. Castellani had at the school tonight. So great job to both of our administrators, and both events were very successful and a lot of people were in attendance. Just to keep everybody on the same page, I want to remind everyone that high school graduation will take place on Friday evening, June 2nd, weather permitting. If it rains, we'll host families and students for the ceremony the next day. As we get close to the end of the school year, everyone knows that schools have many, many end-of-the-year events. If you're unsure of your child's upcoming events, I would strongly encourage anybody to contact your child's school. I'd also like to congratulate our FBLA, Skills USA, and robotics students. They all performed extremely, extremely well and represented our school district with great pride in their recent competitions. Our Quiz Bowl team, again, won the state championship and qualified for the national championship in Atlanta, so that's very exciting. Additionally, Anna Wilson won a state championship in the early childhood education category, so she'll also be traveling to the national championships in June. Both Hannah Aiken and Logan Kraus placed third in the state in their respective categories, and I'm extremely proud of all of our students that stepped up to compete and represented our community. Finally, tonight I'd like to send a shout out to our girls softball team. They are currently the top ranked Quad A team in the state of Pennsylvania. They had 3 huge wins last year against 3 defending district champions, but they beat Hazleton, Pittston area, and Mid-Valley. 2 of those teams were currently state ranked. You know, it's a real pleasure to watch our team play. They play so well together, and the lineup is solid from top to bottom. And more importantly, and I was very proud of this, you know, I was here at National Honor Society last Sunday at the event, and I think we had the majority of the seniors on the baseball team were also recognized and inducted into the National Honor Society. So that might be the greatest, you know, accomplishment and award. But, you know, this is really a special group of student athletes. That's my report tonight. As always, thank you so much for the opportunity to address the board and our community.
Okay, we have some executive sessions to announce that were held and will be held. November 15th, 2022, we had an executive session for safety and security matters. March 16th, after the board meeting, we met on personnel matters relating to specific staff members. March 28th, we had a board self-evaluation workshop in conjunction with PSBA. April 12th, we had a district master planning workshop. And this evening, after this board meeting, because we did not, we all just rolled in here for 7:30, we will be having an executive session for safety and security matters. Okay, we've come to the public comment piece of our agenda. The guidelines for the public comment, we'll have 2 public comment periods during tonight's meeting. 1 public comment on agenda items at the beginning of the meeting and public comment on any items at the end of the meeting. There's a 4-minute limit per person per public comment period. When it's your turn to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and municipality and which agenda items you're speaking about. All speakers must be residents, taxpayers, students, or staff of the TASD. To object to a board action under Title 65, Part 2, Chapter 7, known as the Sunshine Act, please go to the mic, state your name, as well as the section and subsection of Chapter 7 you believe is being violated. The presiding officer and/or district solicitor will make a determination on the stated objection. That determination is final for tonight's purposes. With that, do we have any public comment on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, enrollments are there for everyone's information. Item 6, approval of minutes from the March 16th, 2023 board meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckerd?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pravola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 7, business and finance. Do we have a motion for items 1 through 6?
Motion to approve 1 through 6.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckerd?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pravola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
No.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 8, the superintendent's report.
Good evening again. I'd like to recommend a resolution be adopted approving the personnel report as presented, but before you take action, I would also like to recognize people that are retiring, professional staff and support staff, and I'd like to congratulate Lori Bishop, Angie Burke, Regina Conaboy, Scott Howell, Pam Leza, and Cheryl Montross. They're teachers that I'll be asking you to take action on approving their retirement, and well-deserved. And the sports staff that's retiring, Pam Costello, Wendy Hicks, and Donna Schaefer. And I would like to thank all 9 for their service to our school community.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second and
Or
a
a
third.
third or a fourth.
Any discussion?
Well, this one was kind of personal for me. So it's going to be a different time on the board for me without my wife working in the district. And so, I usually talk about a few other educators, so I'll try to keep this one as brief as possible. But the work that I've seen through speech and debate, through the comments sent to my wife are pretty amazing. So every year there will be 3 or 4 college kids who send a note saying what a difference it made to be ready to speak in front of a crowd. And so I remember being an engineer and nobody talked to me the first 4 years of college, and so when I did my MBA, I was like, oh my God, I got to speak. And so that sort of skill would have been nice, and so I'm sure that will continue forward. But with that, I just wanted to recognize her for that work that she did with that class.
Yeah, there are a couple of teachers on that list that have been here since I was in high school here. I'll leave that out and not say whether that was Angie, but I do know that all of these teachers on this list, they've touched the lives of students in this district in ways that they've changed them for the good. So many congratulations to them, and may they all have a very long and enjoyable retirement.
I'd like to congratulate Scott Howell. He and I graduated from high school together, so I wish him the best as an old friend.
I'm not convinced he's actually not going to be here in the fall, so we'll see.
I have a feeling we'll still see him around robotics. No question.
Yeah.
He's built something very nice in their,
Some
quality
things are just
program.
in someone's blood, and
Yes.
that's. All right, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pravola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
The second one is I'd like to recommend a resolution be adopted approving a conference attendance as listed, and it's for Mr. Gustin for welding teacher training. Cost is $372.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pravola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Do we have any committee reports?
Just that there's a Buildings and Grounds meeting on the 2nd at 5 o'clock here in the auditorium.
So I don't know if everybody heard that, but the Buildings and Grounds meeting is May 2nd at 5 p.m. here in the auditorium.
And that's when we're going to be talking the solar stuff. So,
Correct.
A lot of times we don't get full attendance, but, if folks want to attend to kind of hear what's going on, because it's a new and innovative idea that Dr. Suphan brought forward.
May 2nd, 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, no other committee meetings? Under unfinished business, we have a motion to approve a revised 23-24 school calendar.
Full disclosure on that, I left off Halloween on the last one I asked the board to approve, so it is added back on there.
Like, if that's only changed, the 31st of
The
October?
31st, and the spring break is merged with the Easter, So that Wednesday is off before that also. That Wednesday, in March, the 27th,
Yeah.
since they're combined. So that also gives us play on snow days right there too. But at the end of the year didn't change, nothing else. Literally, I had October ending on the 30th.
All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Motion to approve the second reading and retirement of the policies listed, A through double P, and then to be retired, A through M.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any,
Paul, this is the same thing from our PSBA, all the
Exactly.
recommendations, all the
Yeah, it's all
legalities.
legal updates. It's nothing procedural.
Okay.
any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, under new business, number 1, what are our updates on the right to know request?
So far this year, we've received 62 right-to-know requests for school year 22-23. There were 3 additional right-to-know requests received since the last board meeting. 61 have been fulfilled or partially denied. 1 request is yet to be filled. 6 appeals have been filed with the Office of Open Records for 22-23. There was 2 denied, 1 dismissed, 2 pending, and then 1 that was granted/denied/dismissed in part. That one was, after consulting with our lawyer and revising it, we sent 1 part without even being told to send. That was the granted part. The 1 part was denied, and then we had to send an email that, quite honestly, we thought was immaterial because the person seeking the right to know, the email came from that person, and there really wasn't discussion. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
us forwarding it to the appropriate people. So that's being turned over.
What do we know about any of our financials?
So far this year, there's been $23,057 spent on attorney's fees to date for 22-23, and to vet the responses. And our district staff, just since May 1st, has spent approximately 36 hours processing right-to-know requests. I mean, that equates to, quite honestly, that equates to, 4 figures. That's over $1,000, probably close to $2,000, depending on the employees.
Yeah,
And that's just this year?
that's just
That's
me.
just since March.
Oh, May. I thought it said this year. I was like,
Oh, sorry, March,
Just since
yeah.
March.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the right to know request? Okay, item 2, the TASD visa count is there, as well as item 3, the summary of Kelly Services substitute teacher fill rates. Brings us on to item number 4, the approval of student overnight out-of-state field trips as listed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Congratulations to the students who made the PMEA All-State Concert Band. That's
Absolutely.
quite an accomplishment. Roll call, please.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 5, approval of the bus and van contracts as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 6, recommend that a resolution be adopted to approve the proposed proposed final 2023-2024 budget. With that, I'm also going to throw in the Swilly announcement, which is that this is just a proposed final budget. We are not voting on the actual changes or lack thereof until the June meeting, most likely. But thank you, Aiden. We will be voting on a proposed final budget, but all possible budgets being considered in June will be presented tonight.
Correct, correct. Dr. Suppan, do you want to begin?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yes.
All right. I'm going to try to talk slow. Mr. Doherty yelled at me I talk too fast, so I'm going to try to slow it down a little bit here. First of all, thank you for letting me talk real quick on the 23-24 proposed budget. The first slide is pretty self-explanatory. It's just our budgetary timeline. Please understand this is mandated. This isn't a timeline that we created. April 20th today, our goal is to adopt proposed final budget for 23-24. The next meeting, which will be May 18th, that's where we'll talk about some highlights in the 23-24 proposed budget. We'll have updated information at that time. Costs will become more known, which will help us discuss some key highlights. May 31st, the next meeting, that's the PDE's deadline for proposed budget adoption, but we're adopting tonight. So we're about a month and a half ahead of schedule, so we're on a good path. June 15th, we're looking for board approval of the final budget. If the state hasn't passed their budget yet, we have a couple options. We can estimate the amounts, or we can hold another meeting in June. And June 30th is the PDE deadline for the final budget adoption. It's worth noting that after the state adopts their budget, as a district, we still have 30 days to revise ours, but we do need to be cognizant that the tax bills are printed in early July. Some key factors to consider. With a no mill increase, 0 mill, we're looking at about a $1.1 million deficit. And again, that's what a no mill increase. What we proposed are 5 scenarios. Simple as 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. And that's simply to propose 5 different ones to get a balanced budget. We have a 93% collection rate, which is great for our area. Our tax increase per mill is equivalent to about $287,000 in additional tax revenue. And a mill is $1 for every $1,000 of assessed value. So fixed district expenses versus revenue. If you look, our total 23-24 expenses are $53,382,000 roughly. We're looking at a revenue under that of $52,246,000, so that's where that $1.1 million deficit comes in. It's worth noting that last year we had a fixed cost of 84%. This year our fixed cost is roughly 80%, and that's due to attrition, which is a good thing for the district. We have more wiggle room within that 20% to play with that's not fixed. If you look at our fixed costs, wages account for about 41% and $21 million. The benefits, healthcare, retirement, Social Security, tuition reimbursement, all those type of things are about 29% and are about $15 million. Our debt service, which is relatively a good debt service, is about $900,000, accounting for 2%. Our transportation is 6%, roughly $3 million. And our utilities, our energy consumption is 2%, and that's roughly $1 million. And I'll talk about that in another slide, but it's going to go up because of what our cents per kilowatt is. And what term we just locked in, a 36-month term with direct energy. So our total fixed again, 80%, accounting for roughly $42 million, down from 84% last year. So 20% tied to inflation, and that's what we got wiggle room with. So this is a slide that we're extremely proud of. If you look at this, these bar graphs, this is our fund balance, and this is the growth of our fund balance. I remember Paul Doherty up here last year saying he's going to do his best to come in under. And we're going to look at every cost, and we're going to assess it as an administrative team if it's truly necessary. We're projected to come in under by almost $1.1 million. And that's purely just vetting every single expense that comes through central office and not just approving everything. That's great because that would, unless there's some unknown, something unexpected happens, like a boiler, Mr. Doherty says all the time, that we would have to go and utilize money to pay for that. We're looking at roughly an $8 million fund balance, which is great. So some significant changes to 23-24. 5 teachers were in ESSERS. We're offsetting the ESSERS grant. Those 5 teachers come back to the books. That's roughly $600,000. Our medical insurance increased by 8%. That's significant too. That equates to almost $500,000, roughly $500K. The P&G tax revenue decreases. In total, it depends on millage increase, on what that ends up looking like. But that's a big hit. Roughly $900,000 is roughly 3 mills in total. So our salary increases, listen, we're ecstatic. We have a contract with the teachers. We never want to have, labor strife, but being transparent, that comes with cost. And we need to account for that in our budget. Again, our increased energy costs, our energy consumption, previously we were at about 5 cents a kilowatt. We're at 0.079. But that's going to cause a significant increase in finances in regard to energy consumption. So it's going to go up. And it's important not to drain our fund balance. We have a healthy fund balance. We're trying to keep an appropriate fund balance for future capital projects. Some of the knowns, I may hit on a couple of these earlier, but again, each mill equates to about $287,000. The 0 mill budget, once again, that places us in a deficit of about $1.1 million to start. Each collected mill, again, $287,000. The preliminary budgets we're giving you do account for 4 retired staff members. So that's in those budgets. And again, it's not it should say, extremely mindful on our spending this year, and we'll continue to be extremely mindful on our spending. And again, that's why we have an increased projection going into our fund balance unless something crazy happens. So some more unknowns, state funding. The basic education funding and the special education funding. Right now there's a massive lump in that basic education funding, about $500 million. We can't expect that to be $500 million every year moving forward. If that decreases, we're looking at a significant decrease in the state funding added to our district. So, there's a lot in there right now, but it's unknown what they're going to put moving forward into that bucket. Additional positions. We look at this all the time in regard to attrition. What really needs to be filled, what doesn't. We analyze these numbers. It's not just something we do now during staffing. We're constantly doing this at central office. When we get information on, do we need it, do we not need it, is it a necessary expense? Inflation rate significantly impacts our cost. Again, we just don't know. It's an unknown, and it affects the cost tremendously. We're probably going to have more of an idea of if there's any more positions that can go through attrition in May and June. We're getting more and more data on that as we go. And again, future capital needs. Being honest, we have a couple of old buildings. It's not if, it's going to be when. And that also ties into why it's important to keep that healthy fund balance for when those capital projects are needed and they need to occur. So the next steps again, after a proposed budget is picked, as an administrative team, we'll begin to look at that remaining 20% and what can we do and how can we balance the budget. And we want to do that without ever affecting students in a negative manner or reducing student programs. They're the most important thing in this district, and we want to see what we can do with that 20% and not affect that whatsoever. We'll continue to reduce staffing costs through attrition. We believe there's probably going to be a couple more to come out that we can get rid of through attrition, but we'll continue to analyze that when we get more information every single day. And again, we'll have more key highlights. I said when more costs become known during May 18th, and we'll be back to review the changes and the highlights. That's it.
Mr. Supine?
Yes.
I believe P&G is still phasing in their tax reduction again
Yes.
this year.
Yes.
The reduction, is it, I think next year as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
I could jump in on that. As we were examining that really over the last month, and really over the last couple weeks, maybe, certainly I'm an educator, I'm not a financial person, but I learned. And, when we saw it, it was cumulatively, it's going to end up costing us about 3 mils, P&G. When you add up year to year, like for instance, next year is going to be, or this upcoming year is going to be approximately like a $500,000 difference in what their base was and what we would have gotten. But year to year, the amount that we're going to be reduced next year from P&G is right around $192,000. That's what a 0 mil budget. Obviously, if there's millage that's increased, that amount would go up. And the year after, 24, 25, which would be the final year of that phase in of the tax reduction, it would be about $125,200 additionally. But when you add up those, the phase in over the course of those 3 years, I mean, it equates to significant amounts of money that the district did not have available. So like the hit next year to the budget is $192,400 from Procter & Gamble with a 0 mil budget.
So I'm hearing about 550,000 over the 3 years?
Over in 2020, for instance, it was like 2.1 million in change, and it's going to end up about 1.67. It's going to be about $500,000 from start to finish.
Gotcha. Right. Okay.
That we have to equate for.
Every year.
Yeah, every year.
Yeah, $435,000 every year.
Yeah, I mean that's
That's not including the millage increases over the
Correct.
years.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The amounts that we have, like, so next year it should be, or this upcoming year, 1.801. That does account for the 2 mils from last year that we raised, or that was approved. But after that, it accounts for no millage increase at all.
And this is just talking about Procter & Gamble. This doesn't even touch on the Walmart.
No, Walmart's reduction was a 1-year reduction last year, and it was
Oh,
a
okay.
total of $13,000.
Okay.
Which certainly I'll take, as I said at a meeting the other day with Lackawanna College, I said, I'll take every dime they want to, somebody wants to give us, but it certainly did not have the same impact as the Procter & Gamble reduction. One thing I did learn, and again, I learn all the time, is, we talk a lot in millage, whereas most districts talk in percentages, right? They talk in 2%, 3%. Essentially, everybody is raising. Last year, 490 out of 500 school districts invested in millage, I'll say, invested in a percent. Our surrounding districts that touch us, the majority are raising taxes or, increasing millage. Now, one thing I had to learn is like a mill is not a mill is not a mill, right? So like a mill in Dallas, for instance, is significantly higher based on their assessed values. Like, so when we were looking at it and we kind of dove into it and we saw like Dallas might raise the equivalent of like 7/10 of a mill. And I don't mean to pick on Dallas, it could be anybody. Why 7/10? Why a smaller percentage? Because like for every half mil, they might get $500,000. Whereas for us, a mill is the equivalent of 287. So I'm going to prepare that information for the board. And Dr. Suppan may have already supplied some of that information for the board. You could see that the struggle is just to try to balance a budget across the board, at least by all the districts that are just touching us. I did some projections that, again, real rough projections, but kind of equating for our big ticket budget projections. So this year we just, Dr. Suppan went over in great length. Next year with 24-25, with P&G going down another 125,000, with salary and benefits that are increasing, upwards of $900,000, with another 150,000 from ESSER back on the books. And transportation goes up approximately, on average, $75,000 a year. With that, essentially, we're going to be relying on attritional savings and state increases. Now, we had a meeting with the state, an outstanding webinar with the state the other day, and they gave us some projections of what we could expect this year. And they told us we could expect about $425,000 in state funding for this year, which if that happens, I might do a cartwheel right there in front of everybody. They said the following year, what's expected is $70,000. And the following year after that, so 25, 26 would be 125, 26, 27 would be 125. That's not going to make a dent into what we have coming. Like next year alone, 24, 25, with a $0 mill, I think we'd be short about $1 million. And then that just compounds. As we move forward, it would become the following year in 25, 26, 1.8 deficit. 26, 27 would be a 2.6. That's including the state revenue that they said we could expect. So quite honestly, we don't have enough people that could possibly retire that wouldn't have to be backfilled at that point. There's difficult decisions ahead of us. Because if we start looking at this year with a $1.1 million deficit, we do have some retirements that we're pretty confident that we're going to be able to reduce some more savings through attrition for this year. And if the state does come through with $400,000, we're going to be in real good shape. Passing a $0 mill this year, if you look at it in 1 year, might seem like the right thing to do. When you look into 24, 25 and what's coming, full disclosure, the mill would be helpful for our district. Based off that, and again, I'm sure I said this last year, no matter what the board decides, we'll make it work. My team will make it work. I don't like spending. You can see we definitely went in the right direction, and I'll try to come in under no matter what a budget is. But seeing what I've seen, as we put this together, it would be my recommendation to consider a 1 mill budget.
Paul, I had a quick question, or I just want to make sure I understood, or I wanted to make this publicly known for sure. The 5 teachers that are brought back into the budget, they were teachers that we had employed before ESSER, that we offset their wages. We didn't hire with the ESSER grant. I want to make sure that's like out there.
That's correct. The staff that was the new staff that was brought on board with ESSER funding, they were released before the start of this school year. Yes, the 5 people that are coming back into the budget were currently employed.
That we offset.
We took advantage of the ESSER funding to offset the costs.
Yep.
And then they're coming back on the books.
Yep, I just wanted that overtly
Yes,
said,
that's
because everybody forgets that whole ESSER thing.
Yes.
So.
No, excellent point.
Regardless of which budget we pass tonight, can we make sure that we put all of the slides that were shown tonight and then all the budgets being considered up, just in case
Absolutely.
that changes, whatever we decide tonight changes come June, all of these things are available to the community, and then we can maybe even just make a special budget tab for proposed budget.
Got it.
And if there's any other documents that you guys have put together that would be useful for the community to see what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, these
them up
documents
there.
they'll be up tomorrow.
Great.
The other thing that I think would be very helpful is you just said it, but like to put up clearly, like here's the tax decrease from P&G, so people are just clear on what that is. You just said it, so.
Yeah,
where you could read it.
Right. Like 2021, it was offset with a donation from Procter & Gamble. The reduction was offset by a donation. 22, it was 170,000. 23 is going to be 192.4, and 24 is going to be 124,000.
Yep.
So I want to thank the team for putting this together. Christine, thank you. I see you out there in the crowd. It's hard to see with the lighting because I know that a ton of work goes into this. You know, as Mr. Doherty said, and Dr. Suppan, when you look at this year, you know, things look pretty good, which is fantastic. So our fund balance is a lot more than what we anticipated it would be. That's good for us because, you know, we just talked in some of the master planning stuff that we need to take a look, especially at the facilities master plan. We have aging buildings, especially with Roslyn and where that's going. And then we also had a first look today as a board at some of the longer term stuff that I think it was from Paul's email, kind of that sheet that shows you guys like, hey, here's what this looks like several years out. So, you know, tonight we're going to get kind of this first look at this, but I think our challenge is going to be is how do we plan for the future? So whatever we set now, I think we're going to be in good shape for this year. We just need to do that really careful look at what the next few years looks like. The other thing that I asked Dr. Suppan to put together with Christine's help most likely, is going to be what our revenue per student or expenses per student is. And you know, the reality is we're over $25,000 per student. And so I think we've done a really good job of controlling expenses. You know, the tax increases that we've had have been less than I see on neighboring districts, but the reality is it's still costing a lot to educate our kids. And so we need to be mindful of that in terms of what other districts are seeing. And they're not going to be exact. I mean, Paula, you and I did a lot of this work. It's probably almost 10 years ago, looking at neighboring districts and kind of where that is. And so we'll consider, you know, the special education mix, the transportation, and kind of how all those things are set up. But we need to do that benchmarking as well to make sure that what we have here is kind of, you know, making sure we're staying in check with other neighboring districts also. So thank you very much to the team for putting this together. It was a really complete package.
Director Burke, I do want to mention, and Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, but how per pupil expenditure is done is based off our ADM and our average daily membership, and I don't think it's that high. There's things that get deducted out of that calculation.
So we'll talk.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll absolutely get that
There's probably a way to
information.
look at it. I mean, all I did is take, you know, the budget down
Right.
divided by 2,000,
Right.
82 students.
But we could we'll have something prepared for May.
Yeah.
I'll get it out to the board, but we'll have something prepared for May for that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah,
I just caution you because I remember we looked at the cost per student years ago. Christine, remember we had with the last round of teacher negotiation? Some of that data is about 2 or 3 years trailing.
Yeah, we gotta
So
be
I
careful.
would just be careful because that is COVID year that I think we're probably going to get data on.
Yeah,
So
that's going to be.
I think we just have to be careful of that and then really look through what that cost per
you know,
student number would
we'll
be.
see what we can put together.
That's again more of a long-term item. It's not a real big consideration
Right.
for this year. You know, we're going to have the data to make that decision. I'm just trying to figure out as we're looking at that expenditures, especially on the capital projects, to kind of keep that in check with what we see around us.
Yep, no question.
The other question I had was, is there a standard, like, you know, trying to keep an appropriate fund balance, is there a standard based on your total expenditure? What?
Yes.
Okay.
For a district our size, with a budget our size, it's 8% for an unassigned fund balance, and I want to say we're right about that.
It's
Christine.
what, did you say 8%?
8%
Okay.
unassigned. So some of our fund balance is assigned.
Yep.
It's assigned for PACERS, future PACERS contributions. We have about $4 million that's unassigned, which is pretty close.
And the ramifications of that are, I'm not the budget person up here, but I just remember this from when PJ was here and Christine would talk to us, that, you know, districts have credit ratings. And
Oh, yeah.
through Moody's or whatever it is, and if we start dipping below that 8% or 10%, whatever it is, it could make it more difficult for us to borrow money in the future at good rates when we do need to do a multi-million-dollar renovation to the primary center and things like that, so.
Right. The
So
danger.
that's another thing. I think another piece of data then that should be out on the slides or out, you know, is so we remember, like, the one that's got the bar graphs here, like this.
Yes.
What we should have here is there should be a target, you know, 8% or whatever, somewhere on here, so we know what it is, so that we
Okay.
could, so it's very visible, like it's supposed to be this much, and it's wherever the bar is
Yeah,
relative.
I mean, we're right about it right now, and
Yep.
I'm thrilled with that. You know, the one thing with the fund balance, and, you know, I'm thrilled to have a healthy fund balance right now. But what I don't ever want to get into is paying daily operational costs out of a fund balance, because that'll
Right.
that becomes like a black hole real fast. I want to use our fund balance when we have a capital project. I want to use it for something, you know, substantial.
Yeah, makes sense.
Can we also, on that chart, when it goes online, can we differentiate on it the assigned versus unassigned? Because I think that the message is different when it says that there's, $7 to
Sure.
$8 million there, when really, like, 4 million of it is committed to other things
Right.
that we can't really touch it. It's there, but it's like your escrow at the
Yep.
mortgage company.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Doherty made a recommendation for 1 mil. Do we have a motion for that or any other budget?
Well, I want to thank Paul and his team, if I could just say, I know that you dug deep, and we have gotten feedback about taxes and things like that. I appreciate, Paul, what you're saying about you'll make it work. Right now, at least, what I'm looking at, especially with some unknowns, I propose just going with the 0 mil increase for tonight. I know it's a preliminary vote. I think getting some more data, talking about it again in May, might be the smart thing to do rather than committing to a 1%. That's my open...
1 mil. Yeah.
No, 0 mil today.
No.
Yeah.
Not 1%, 1 mil.
That's what I mean, yeah.
All right, yeah.
So that's my initial thought process based on the data that you and your team have put together today.
Yeah, I'd like to see, we probably won't know by May, but it'd be great to see some data from the state in terms of what that
Yeah,
income is.
agreed.
Because that'll provide some real data for us.
Yes.
I've heard recommendations. I've not heard a motion yet.
I'll make a
Motion to approve a 0 mil increase.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pavola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. And again, we're just going to reiterate that that is a proposed budget, which can change when we vote on a final budget in June, but all proposed budgets that could potentially be adopted in June will be available on the website.
Yes.
Okay, item 7, motion to approve the transfer from the bond fund to the general fund in the amount of $1,646.58 to cover the Dewey engineering costs for the fire alarm replacement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pavola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 8, motion to approve the transfer from the loan account to the general fund in the amount of $6,979.70 to cover the purchase of desks from Virco and an additional $160,517.70 to cover the Dewey engineering costs of the pool and HVAC.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
What, the desks are for what? Just wondering, what are the desks for? Are they like student desks for
Yes.
something?
Yes, they are.
For like just all over the schools, or is it like one classroom setting or something, or?
Chuck, do you know where they went? John Shapolsky, do you know where the desks went? High school.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Pavola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
No.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 9, approval of budget transfer is listed on page 76 for the primary center, $3,075.
Motion approved.
Second.
Is that for the aerial artist tonight? I'm kidding.
That was free.
Oh. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Pavola?
Yes.
Mr. Weidner?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item number 10, this is very exciting for our district. Motion to conditionally approve Luzerne Intermediate Unit's use of classroom space in our Mahookney School, starting with the 23-24 school year. Financial information will be submitted for approval at a later date.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Conditionally, what does that mean?
Well, we're still working out a lease agreement with
Okay.
LIU, but they want to start getting students
So they
lined up.
just need the foot in the door to, that
They,
we're on
yes,
board
they
with it,
want
as
to,
long as
they
the
want to start
contract
moving.
works out. Okay.
Yep, we had the state in for approval purposes. When you have special education classrooms, the state actually physically comes out and approves them.
Yeah.
Completely on board.
Yeah.
They're going to be in one of the wings in Mahoopany that's really, right now, totally shut off. So they're going to take that space, and it's really a good opportunity for us and for students that need an outside placement, that they won't be being transported for an extensive, so long. We have some kids that are on vans for an hour.
The armchair lawyer that I am, when I see conditionally
Yeah.
or may,
I wanted to be able to tell the director that we're good to go.
You're in the wrong profession.
Do you feel that in the coming agreement, there'll be enough money to cover for what's being used?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please, Bill?
Do you feel that there's going to be enough money in the coming agreement to cover what's being used?
I do, but so you'll still have final approval once it's all worked out. This is just so I could tell them that they could continue with their
I
plan.
hate to get so far down the road and the money's not there, what needs
Oh,
to be.
absolutely. I think just potentially having, if our own students are in that program, could make it worth it financially.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Widener,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert,
Yes.
Mr. Franco,
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel,
Yes.
Dr. Perbola,
yes.
Mr. Farr,
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold.
Yes. Item 11, motion to approve the purchase and installation of an inclusive playground for all students at the primary center. The cost of the project is not to exceed $350,000. That will include the cost of the work, approvals, inspection fees, and contain a contingency of 7%. The project will be partially funded through a PCCD grant.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Do you know what percent or how much is funded through the grant? I can't remember what you sent it, but.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number. I believe it's $120-something thousand is in PCCD. We won't come, knock on wood, we won't come anywhere near 350. With the permits and stuff, last board meeting, we had it on 275. We pulled it because we were a little bit worried that it might go over 275 with the permits from, the county. But it will be way under that. So it's almost 50-50, I would say, split between PCCD.
Where are we pulling the remaining funds?
The loan.
The loan.
Yeah. Loan. And once I get updated specs from Recreation Resource, I'll certainly share them with the board too, so you guys can see what it looks like.
This is going to be awesome. This is going to be spectacular.
Thanks for working that grant.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I hope so for that money.
Thanks for working on the grant for it, too. That's great.
No problem.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert,
Yes.
Mr. Franco,
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel,
Yes.
Dr. Perbola,
Yes.
Mr. Widener,
Yes.
Mr. Farr,
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold.
Yes. Item 12, a motion to accept a donation of $5,547.34 from Jersey Mike Subs that will be allocated to the Tigertron's robotics team.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those kids ate that many hoagies?
Right?
More hoagies.
It was Dr. Supon that ate that many hoagies.
I'm a consumer, I just consume.
I had one of them.
Any other discussion? Wait, did we have a motion? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckert,
Yes.
Mr. Franco,
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel,
Yes.
Dr. Perbola,
Yes.
Mr. Widener,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Farr,
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold.
Yes. Item number 13, motion to approve the district's Act 93 agreement for July 2023 through June 2026. Act 93 is mostly our administrators, staff that are not covered by the support staff contract or the teacher's contract.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I want to thank the committee for meeting and working diligently to get this contract completed.
Thank you to our Act 93 partners on that. So there was some last minute contractual language that I was having trouble understanding. So thank you for those that are on that emails to get that cleaned up, and we should be ready to go.
This is our third and final of our big contracts that we've been working on over the last 2 years, if that's the correct timeline, right? It was the last 2 years. The whole process of these contracts has been so much different than it was when I first got on the board, and I think that it's really important to acknowledge that there are so many people that are all working together to make these things happen, and we really appreciate that collaboration from all the participants. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckerd?
Yes.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
No.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Item 14, motion to approve memorandums of agreements by and between TASD and Tunkhannock Area Educational Support Personnel Association as presented, pages 77 and 78. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
So I'm trying to read the FID day one. So for the FID days for the cafeteria and the secretary staff that's listed, they would then, those extra 5 days would be at the end of the year for them? That's what right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, typically, if we're on a FID day, we have some significant weather.
Yep.
And how the contract read was they could come in an hour late. Well, they bring cafeteria staff in an hour late on that day. It just doesn't, it just didn't make sense to us. No, we worked with the union, and everyone was very happy with this proposal.
Yep. Okay, got it.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
No.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckerd?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, that brings us to our second public comment period. If there are any individuals that would like to make any additional public comment, now would be the time to come up to the microphone. The question was, what is, for the Act 93, what is the overall dollar increase?
Bob, I don't know the dollar increase. I know what the percentages are. For 23, 24, it's 3.75. And then for the following 2 years, 24, 25, and 25, 26, it's 3.25. 3.25, yes. And I think just about everything else in the Act 93 stayed
Everything else stays the same.
stayed the same.
Bob, and I have the spreadsheet on it with the attrition that we had in there. The total cost of the whole contract ended up being, like, I think it was like $65,000 in total cost, so it was a small number. Yep.
Any other public comment?
I do. Since our last meeting, we've had 2 more former employees pass away. The teacher, Jim West, and maintenance man, George Quick, since our last meeting, who were both.
Condolences.
All right, any other comment from the board? Or admin?
Yes, I do have a comment.
Oh, here we go.
As the extracurricular chairman, and I want to thank our administrators and the folks who were involved in our search for a head football coach. Football and track and field are 2 near and dear sports, and I want to say thank you to the board and the administration. We voted on Mr. Pat Keating, and I see Pat is in the audience tonight, and that must be, is that your daughter? Oh, your wife, sorry. So I want to welcome you, Coach Keating, to the Tunkhannock community. We are excited that you're coming on board. We appreciate your throwing your hat in the ring. I also want to thank the other candidates who interviewed. We had a great pool, but Pat, you got the nod and we voted it tonight, so welcome aboard. And as a gesture, and I took a chance for a positive vote tonight, here's your first Tunkhannock hat, memorabilia, Tigers football. Thank you for coming.
Welcome. Any other comments? Okay, the board,
Motion adjourned.
we have a motion to adjourn. The board will be adjourned